The sun had barely climbed above the horizon when the city began to blur with movement, yet at one quiet bus stop on Rosebridge Avenue, time seemed painfully still. A tiny girl with trembling legs and mismatched braces clinging to her worn-out shoes sat frozen on the cold metal bench, clutching a faded pink backpack to her chest. Her wide, frightened eyes kept returning to the corner where her mother had walked away minutes ago, promising to come back, but never even glancing back. It was in that fragile moment, in the brightness of a day too harsh for a child so small, that her life shattered in silence, leaving only the hollow echo of abandonment drifting in the warm morning air. If you believe kindness can change lives and second chances are real, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to RW Insights. It helps more people see stories that inspire compassion. Across the street, Arion Vale, a 42-year-old CEO known for his stern discipline and colder-than-steel reputation, stepped out of his sleek black sedan. He never came this way, his driver usually took a different route. But today he insisted on going alone, needing air from a world that felt increasingly distant to him. He walked briskly toward the bus stop, checking his watch like every second was something he owned. But the sight of the trembling child stopped him mid-step. Something inside him, something he thought success had dried up long ago, gave a sudden painful throb. A familiar ache, the ache of memories he'd buried, rose uninvited. The girl, no older than 7, sat with her chin trembling, but she didn't cry loudly the way children normally do. She simply stared at her small hands as though trying not to exist. Arion watched her left leg twitch, the brace slightly crooked, likely causing pain with every shift of her tiny body. He approached slowly, his shadow falling across her shoes, but she didn't move, not even to look up. She seemed so used to being invisible that she didn't react at all. Arion felt something he had long forgotten, the instinct to care. He noticed a small note pinned to her backpack. It was wrinkled from her tight grip, but the words were painfully clear. "I can't take care of her anymore. Someone please help." Arion's breath caught. Memories flashed of himself as a boy standing on the steps of an orphanage while strangers whispered about his worth, his father long gone and his mother unable to cope. He had sworn he would never feel those emotions again, and yet here they were, raw and powerful, pulling at him like chains made of the past. The girl's name, he discovered later from a small tag on her pack, was Mira Leonette, and she had been born with congenital muscle weakness that made walking difficult and painful. Her mother, overwhelmed by poverty and exhaustion, must have made a devastating decision. But no decision could justify leaving a child helpless and alone. Arion felt an urgency rising inside him, a need to protect her from the cold world he knew far too well. Without fully understanding why, he found himself guiding Mira gently away from the bus stop toward his car, her small hand barely curling around one of his fingers. As they arrived at the city's Central Children's Welfare Office, something remarkable happened. Myra's hand, which had been limp with fear, tightened around his. It was such a tiny gesture, but Arion felt it reverberate through his entire being. She trusted him, completely, instinctively, without knowing who he was. He didn't know how to process that. He had spent his entire adult life locked behind walls of work, money, and silence. But this child, quiet and fragile, had somehow passed through every barrier. Hours turned into days, and Arion kept returning to the center to check on her, even when he told himself he shouldn't. Mira began to smile when he entered the room, and the way her eyes lit up pierced something deep within him. He learned that she loved drawing but only drew trees because she said trees never run away. He learned that she hummed when she was nervous, and that she avoided mirrors because she didn't like seeing her braces. He learned that her favorite dream was to one day run, just once, across a field without falling. Arion, despite being known as a man who never let emotions interfere with logic, found himself rearranging meetings, delaying flights, and shifting deadlines so he could spend an extra hour sitting beside her, telling her stories about how he once fell off his bike repeatedly yet kept riding until he learned what balance felt like. Mira listened with quiet awe, as though the world became safer with every word he spoke. The staff at the welfare center watched in disbelief as the usually distant CEO softened before their eyes. But the turning point came one bright afternoon when Ariane found Mira sitting alone in the therapy room, struggling to fasten her leg brace. She was frustrated, her hands shaking, her eyes glued to the floor. Ariane knelt and gently adjusted the brace for her, then lifted her chin so she could see his face. In her eyes he saw a silent plea, not for help, but for belonging. A wordless question, will you leave too? Something shifted in him like a door quietly unlocking after decades of being stuck. In that moment he realized he couldn't walk away. Not from her. Not from what she awakened in him. She wasn't just another responsibility. She was the second chance he never knew he needed. And he was determined to be the safe place she had been denied. After weeks of paperwork, interviews, and emotional evaluations, Ariane was approved to become Myra's guardian. When he brought her home for the first time, her tiny gasp of wonder at the sunlight-filled garden behind his house made his chest ache with warmth. Mira ran, slowly, unevenly, but with pure joy, across the grass as her braces clicked softly. She didn't fall. She simply laughed, her voice high and full of life, echoing through the place that had once felt too large and too empty for one man. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share. And don't forget to subscribe to RW Insights so more souls find stories that remind them of hope. Before we end, please leave a special comment. Kindness can save lives. As Ariane watched Mira explore her new world with bright, hopeful eyes, he realized that sometimes the greatest miracles begin in the most unexpected moments, like a lonely CEO meeting a forgotten little girl at a bus stop on an ordinary day. And as the warm daylight wrapped them both, their lives quietly intertwined, proving that love often grows from the most painful beginnings.